What's up, everybody? It's an Overreaction Monday show here on Orange Bloods Live. I'm Jeff Ketchum. That's Anwar Richardson. It's kind of a big day. I don't know if you guys have heard. It's Monday. And stuff's happening. Tuesday will be a big deal as well, but we'll have videos all week long here on the channel because that's what we do. Like, comment, subscribe to the page, jump into the notifications, or into the Specs chat is what I meant to say. Chat it up. Send us some super chats. We're talking probably a little bit about everything today. It's a Monday. The Orange Bloods is not going to be in the Rivals Network tomorrow. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. But specifically the news of the day on War coming out of the weekend. It's like Groundhog Day, which I love that movie, by the way, but I officially feel like Bill Murray waking up after the 17th time he's put the toaster in the bathtub to kill himself. Texas isn't on fire in June the way Texas fans would like, right? I mean, everybody wants to be successful all the time. You want instant gratification. They seem to know that a big-time recruiting class will eventually follow. There's very few people who will acknowledge, I think things are bad and we won't get ours. Like, nobody's doing that. People want the momentum. People are looking at the last string of commitments. Xavier Griffin yesterday announces for Alabama, linebacker out of Georgia, a guy that when he visited Texas, there were a lot of people who felt like, oh, that guy's definitely going to be a Longhorn. That was the vibe when he was visiting. And then a couple of weeks later, it's a reminder, hey, man, sometimes these guys come on visits. So, hey, everybody has a friend that every time they go on a date, they fall in love with a girl. We all know that guy. How was the date? Mother of my children. She's the one. And you're like, what color are her eyes again? I don't know, but it was fantastic, right? Everybody knows that guy. That happens with these high school kids on visits. Sometimes they get carried away. Sometimes they have good times on board, and then sometimes they go home, and then the shine wears off. And here you and I are doing an Overreaction Monday today, and I feel like our message is going to be, don't overreact. Everything's cool. I promise you, nobody behind the scenes is tripping in the slightest.
You know, it's funny, Ketch, you mentioned that. You and I always talk about, okay, ways to maybe reinvent ourselves and things that we're doing. And we always kind of look at things and we always say, all right, should we be doing this or not? Or should we find a new way to do it? I got to be honest with you. The interviews after the official visit is probably one of the most formulaic / non-informative thing that we ever do because everyone has a great visit. Like, I've yet to read one of these things in my tenure where a guy came out to visit, Jason talked to him on a Sunday afternoon, or he's at the airport and the guy was like, man, Austin was trash. Like, or like, man, you know what? This was like, honestly, I just don't even see myself here. Every single person I can cut and paste. Jason doesn't even have to go to an airport. If you're being quite honest with you, I already know what they're going to say before they say it. Every kid says the same exact thing. They all have a good time. And then they go on another visit. And then another one. And they have a good time there. They have a good time there. And then eventually they figure out what they're going to do. And so I literally don't even like to read Jason Sunday's updates because I find it, all due respect, pretty useless. I say this to the publisher of Orange Bloods, right? But
I don't disagree with you. And like, I think the spirit of your point is right, really. You're not wrong. And because usually what I end up doing is I end up looking for, if there's 500 words, what's the 10 that make me go, oh, is there anything like that at all that makes me go, oh, that's interesting. I wouldn't have thought of that. For instance, Lamar Brown comes in and then going on the way out, he's like, oh, it's all about relationships. And maybe the best relationship I have is with Alan Clark. And you're like, oh,
yeah,
file that away because we may get later in the process and Texas may pop up and we may go, he said when he visited, it was all, they're little nuggets, but I think you're not wrong. I think what's also happened, when Jason and I first got started in this business, you didn't go to the airport and have 30 reporters all waiting.
Yeah.
The same interview, putting the kid in the same, the kid doesn't want to do 30 interviews.
Yeah.
So he's programmed. You're all getting the same answers. There's not going to be, I think the Texas market is oversaturated, which I think is great for the consumer. Yeah. You guys have no lack of, I think, quality. Honest to God, you could take Orange Bloods or Hook 'em 24/7 or Inside Texas or
on
Texas football, right? You could take
on Texas football. I apologize. On Texas football,
you could take any of those, and slap them down in any other market, and it's easily the best website, publication, media coverage. Trust me, man. I see it. When you cover recruiting as closely as we do, and one of the things we've done recently is go, what is being reported in every market on every kid that Texas is recruiting on every weekend. Like, it's a level of coverage from an intensity standpoint that's even a little new for us. But one of the things, and Cody Carpentier is in the chat, man, he can speak to this because he does the, behind the scenes articles on Ohio State or Texas A&M or Oklahoma. And you get a look of like how competitive some markets are compared to ours. Texas just is crazy.
Because there's some markets, they don't have updates on the weekend.
No, look, I got into a tiff with a Texas A&M reporter in the Rivals Network because the weekend that KJ Edwards visited Texas A&M, he was, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm trying to remember this correctly, he was like the only guy that visited that Texas fans would have had any concern about. So all I needed from any A&M sites anywhere, because what we tend to do in the industry is if you're a Texas reporter, you let your A&M guys in the network get the updates in the network, because you don't want 100 reporters calling these kids every weekend. You have to bow down on some level and give these kids, it's just the way it's like unwritten rules, if you will. So we don't really call KJ Edwards in the immediate aftermath. We let the A&M guys do that because you just, out of respect for the kid's time, if you have a special relationship, that's one thing. But typically you wait your turn, and maybe during the week it's one thing. But right after a visit, you let that school's media do their jobs. I'm just trying to find out if KJ, I'm looking for the update that Anwar hates. I'm not expecting him to say anything.
I don't really hate it.
You got no time for it.
Okay, that part's true.
I'll
read the 3-2-1. 3-2-1 on the Tuesdays. That's where I get my information.
You got to check out everything everywhere all at once on occasion. But you know what? Some of it may be exactly too much of what you hate. So all I'm looking for now, look, when KJ Edwards committed, and look, I leave Texags and Billy Lucci and Jason Howell, that whole group I leave out of this discussion. I don't have a Texags. I was on the big network A&M sites, okay? The day that KJ Edwards committed, it was the biggest thing since sliced bread. Texas took one on the chin. The Aggies landed a knockout punch. We heard all the rhetoric. All I'm saying is the kid visited a couple of days later. He was the biggest thing on every A&M site. It's Sunday night. I'm like, where's the KJ Edwards update? Where's the update that Anwar doesn't even want to read? I just need a quote.
Poor Jason.
I just need a quote. And you know what? There were none. And I'm like, I'm trying to imagine a world where we just didn't work on a Sunday after a major visit. No updates, forget about going to the airport and interviewing kids. There are no updates, no interviews. Hey, Orange Bloods, how was KJ Edwards' visit over the weekend? You'll fucking find out on Tuesday in good time, my man. Settle down. What? And that's where it is in some markets. So I do think that it's interesting. I think you're more likely to get a a good update from an A&M site, because there's so few A&M reporters calling these kids. Don't take my word for it. Literally go to 24/7 or On3 or Rivals and look at what was produced that weekend. Other than Sam Spiegelman doing, I think, the Lamar Brown update from the day before, there were no recruiting updates on our Rivals site. Look, I'm not trying to pick a bone. What I'm telling you is,
I need you to go on, because if you keep on this, I'm going to say something that's going to piss off.
No, but it's like, the thing is, when we're talking about these updates that you did, I used to take these kids to Dan's Hamburgers after their visits and get like one-on-one time, and you'd get good stuff out of that. I don't think where we've adjusted as a culture is, hey, what do we expect to come out of a coach's press conference after a game in front of 30 reporters? Nothing? Okay, what do we think comes out of a recruit's mouth when the same thing happens after a visit? All the cameras are on, all the phones are out. You're not going to get anything. And I think that we're like, we got updates, baby. And in reality, we should be, here are the updates that probably don't mean a whole lot because it's 2025. And these kids ain't giving a shit.
So, okay, all right. So now I feel bad because I feel like I just threw Jason under the bus.
No, he knows. He knows.
It may be, okay, it's two different things, but to bring it back, right? So maybe that should just be like bullet point stuff, right? And maybe you should just come with a template of just the need to knows, but with a quote, right? But like, who was your host? Where'd blah, blah, blah. Here's a quote, something like that, right?
I think what's the single thing that stands out the most is always the money thing, right? It is always brass tacks. What the hell are you going to tell all your family about on Monday? That's always, to me, the only thing that matters. Because, honestly, the host is one of those things we treat, oh my God, that's secret information. This guy's being hosted by, and these dudes don't hang out with these dudes. Trust. They all break up. They find their peeps. Yeah. Sometimes they hang. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's a dog and pony show. What matters is, what does that kid say the next day is the single most important thing. And if that sounds like a formulaic answer, then you got your answer. If there's something that's a really good answer, then you probably got a fighting chance. That's what you should look for every time.
But so I think what's happening now, Coach, is that, we've heard good updates, and there was supposed to be leanings. And then, like you said, it's Groundhog's Day because these guys start committing to other places. And now there's like, what's going on? And I can think over the last couple of years, Micah Hudson from a couple of years ago, what that meltdown looked like, and Texas ended up being just fine. I can think of Doran Moore from last year and what happened there. And it's not to say you don't want a Doran Moore. Let's be clear. Or even if it's Evan Stewart from a couple of years ago, it's not to say, it's not to do that thing where the guy goes and tries to get the woman's number, and then when she rejects him, he's like, well, I ain't like you, no way. Like, you ain't all that. Like, you're like, dude, yeah, no, she is all that. Like, you don't try to get your pride up. And that's kind of sometimes when a guy goes somewhere else, it's like, oh, we didn't even want him. I don't even know he could be in the 2 deep. Like, they do that thing.
Everybody's coping is different.
Yes.
You know how, like, some people are nice drunks and some people are mean drunks?
Yeah.
It's the same thing when it comes to rejection and recruiting. Some people are like, man, I wish that kid well, except for the times that he plays against Texas. Mm-hmm. Then there are other people who are like, man, screw that kid. We didn't want him anyway. There are others. We recruited better last year anyway. He wasn't going to play ahead of Jonah Williams.
Okay. Correct. And you're like, yo, like that. No, sometimes you just got to take the L. And sometimes, look, like for whatever people want to, and I think you made this point the other week. Like, for whatever you want to say about a Texas A&M, they still recruit well. Yeah. Like Texas A&M over the years has recruited well. They've been able to get top elite guys. I mean, at one point, Kyler Murray, who's one of the top guys in the nation, went to Texas A&M, right? So they've been able to get guys. So we shouldn't act surprised when A&M all of a sudden is getting guys in recruiting. Like they're going to get their guys. And of course, Alabama is had a surge. And of course, it's Alabama. It's Kellen DeBoer. I mean, there's a lot of good reasons there. But at the end of the day, it's not the death blow for Texas if these guys are going somewhere else, because we know what's going to happen, Catch. Like, wake me up in December. Wake me up in December, because I know June is just – we should name this. I got to ask ChatGPT what the overreaction in June should be, and then we should figure it out, because that's all this is. It's June, it's July. And then Sargano's guys start doing what Sargano's guys do.
The thing is, look, I'm going to put this graphic up, okay?
All right.
Because I was looking at this week as part of my story that I wrote on my 10 Thoughts from the Weekend. These are the top 3 rosters in college football: Ohio State, Georgia, Texas. Georgia and Ohio State have a slight edge on Texas from a pure number standpoint, just by a few, right? But like, you can look at the numbers. Ohio State's got more wide receivers, but Texas has more offensive linemen. They have more defensive linemen. You can see, like,
hey, by the way, Catch, can you just do me a favor, set it up for just the novice when you say super blue chips?
These are all the 5 stars and high 4 stars as recruits, both in the portal and as high school recruits on all rosters. These are the Arch Mannings, the Anthony Hills, the Colin Simmonses. How many of these guys do you have on your roster? Texas is 3rd in the country. They've got 20. Georgia has 25. I think Ohio State has 24. And when you look, I broke it down by position because you can see what it looks like. Now, those numbers don't look huge when these 3 are next to each other. But if we were to put OU or A&M, and you started seeing a bunch of zeros populating all over the board, and then you would go, oh, so Texas is pretty balanced, pretty stacked. You'd go, oh, they lost a safety last week in recruiting, but damn, it doesn't look like any of those 3 schools need to worry about losing a defensive back in recruiting. They got DBs. I don't know if you know this on more. Georgia, Texas, and Ohio State, they've got DBs. Now, look, you can look at that number from a Texas side of things, and you could go, you know what they could use more of? Tight ends.
And linebackers.
Yeah. It's like, okay, Anthony Hill. And again, the other thing that I would point out about these numbers, it says on the graphic, but I should probably say it. These are the number of players on rosters that were rated as 5 stars or high 4 stars by at least 2 services. And we could go in. Hell, by the time you include every guy on the roster, half the guys on all these teams were rated really highly by at least 1 service. It's kind of crazy. Like, you can probably find 15 guys off of last year's Texas recruiting class that somebody thought was a national top 75 type player. So I try to make it a little more narrow, a little more elite. So I call it consensus super blue chips. So the numbers are low for a reason. Texas, Georgia, and Ohio State have more than double everybody in the country not named Alabama or Oregon. That's it. So I'm comparing what they had to Georgia and Ohio State here, Anwar. You can get a real sense of, like, there's not a whole lot in between these rosters.
Yeah, I mean, well, I tell you what's if you keep that up though on the screen, what's impressive too is the trenches. When you look at the O-line and in the D-line, like that in itself is really impressive. That jumps out the page for me, just because of what that focus has looked like over the past few years as far as trying to get those guys. I'm fascinated by Georgia and the tight ends. Like, wow, that's pretty damn amazing that to have that. But to your point,
and that does not include. They're going to get like 2 5-stars in this class. Like, they are tight end Anwar. Jesus.
Yeah, that's impressive to stack them like that. I mean, like you said, Texas is they get a guy at the portal. But yeah, as far as the high school thing is concerned, that's pretty interesting as well. So I see where you're saying like they're stacked. There's not, and so yes, there's not tons of reasons to worry or be concerned, because at the end of the day, they pull it off when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, I think you'd look at all three of these rosters. Ohio State could use a running back, but like we know they're good. They got running backs. Like they don't have an elite of the elite of the elite on campus right now. That just means they'll get one in the next recruiting class. Like that's how this works. Texas could use a tight end. Georgia could use a quarterback. We know that. And you can kind of look at these numbers and go, okay, well, like this is where they should add guys if they can. And for instance, if they lose a 5-star corner or safety, if you're any of these three schools, you're probably like, well, that sucks, but we're going to be cool. And like that's the larger conversation that I'm trying to have, is that like know your roster. Know, like if you're Ohio State and a 5-star wide receiver doesn't pick you this year, don't flip out. Don't ask what's wrong with our wide receivers coach. Consequently, if Georgia was unable to get a tight end this year, which is not going to be the case, but if the tight ends coach was like, it's kind of hard for me to land guys right now because we're kind of stacked at the position, touche.
Yeah.
If we don't get Caden Protho, maybe it's not a huge deal for Georgia when it's all said and done. Or maybe you would look at that and go, of those three schools, who would a 5-star tight end be the most valuable for? And you might go, wow, I don't know that push comes to shove. You'd think Texas might not get outbid in November and December for a guy there because they need a guy there. And we might say, God, if somebody's trying to pay a DB $3 million in December, Georgia, Texas, and Ohio State may say we're good. And these are the new conversations that have to take place on WAR. Know your roster. Know how you've recruited, because we know that one of the things about the Texas offensive line situation is that a couple the guys they have are DJ Campbell and Neto Yamuzalo, that Kelvin Banks went off the board. They need younger guys, right? Thank you for putting that back up, by the way.
No problem.
And so I think if you know your roster really well, you'll even know, well, for instance, if you were to say, well, Texas only has one quarterback, you could go, well, yeah, but Diabell literally may be the number one quarterback in the country this year. And that doesn't include KJ Lacey, who Rivals thought was a high 4-star last year, but he just didn't have a second service to add him into those numbers. Like there are mitigating circumstances where the second class part of your talent acquisition, again, full of guys that a lot of people really liked.
Richard Wesley's a 5-star right now.
What's that?
Richard Wesley's a
exactly.
5-star.
Well, and that's the other thing. Like Texas, everybody acknowledges that Texas has had elite recruiting over the course of the last few years. So what does that mean? Well, when it comes to high 4-stars or 5-stars, Texas in each of the last 3 years had 7, 6, and 5. Average it out, 6 per year at the apex of their recruiting. What does that mean? 5 stars, high 4 stars, Richard Wesley, Diabell. Texas has 2. Felix Ojo looks like he's going to be a Longhorn. John Turntine looks like he's going to be a Longhorn. Jamarian Carlton looks like he's going to probably be a Longhorn. If all 3 of those things happen, which I think Vegas, if they had odds on this, would have Texas as the betting favorite, now they're at 5 without having to really do too much more. They got to hold on to who they're the favorites for. But I think that's where the smart money would be if it was Vegas right now. And then you're at 5. Then you got to get one more before December. Does anybody think that the month of December will go by? And that Steve Sarkisian won't get somebody that we're not talking about on recruiting videos on Orange Bloods Live in June? Because I'm telling you right now, Justice Terry was not anything we were talking about in the summer last year. And Texas just decided, what do we need? Who do we want? What do we have to do? And they're not having that conversation in June, which is why they're just not too fussed over any of this stuff. If they took,
by the way, don't forget too, Catch, a guy like Dalen McCutcheon was going to go to FSU, and that thing kind of falls apart. And then all of a sudden, in November, Dalen falls in their lap.
Well, they flipped Cade Phillips, who was their number one DB on the board, a guy that at the end of the process was rated as a consensus 5-star. Mm-hmm. He committed to LSU, and that was an interesting deal because on the day, this you'll crack up at this, Anwar. When Cade Phillips left his Texas visit, he told Jason, "I'm going to LSU. I like Texas. I liked LSU more than Texas." Like we said, what? But then he started doing interviews afterwards where he was changing his tune a little bit. And Jason and I were like, he keeps saying that he likes Texas and that he's favoring Texas, but he sure did say that he loved LSU. So when he committed to LSU over Texas in the summer, we weren't shocked. There was no reason to be shocked. He had indicated previously he really did kind of like LSU. But when he flipped, I think a lot of people took that for granted. They did not realize that behind the scenes, Texas viewed Cade Phillips on the level of Michael Fasusi and Justice Terry. From an evaluation standpoint, they think and they thought he was that good. And that didn't happen until late. And everybody would have guessed in the summertime, well, that ship has sailed. He's where he wants to be, LSU. And sometimes these kids don't know in the summertime where they want to be until Uncle Sam shows up in December and like, hey, do you like money? Because you're going to have to pay me more of it, but you're going to make a lot more. It's funny how the numbers can change feelings.
They do. It changes a lot. Like that's why like that second wave, that last wave is always the most interesting one, because you see guys now all of a sudden flipping and go, and it's always interesting. You know what I always find fascinating, Catch, is when these guys commit in the summer, then they all still want to take visits in the fall. And it's inevitable. Like they're all, because at the end of it, some people just want to shut it down, and some people are just over it. But some people don't want. Some people like trips. So and you and I both know it doesn't matter where a kid commits to in June, because most staffs are still going to recruit that kid, pretty hard. Maybe a couple might back off and they'll focus in on other ones. But if you're elite of the elite, oh yeah, you're going to still have people coming for you. And then when you start getting November, December, and now that bag is getting dropped, and someone dropped out of another person's class, or maybe, hey, I can throw a little bit more your way. You sure you don't want to come here? And it's like, yeah, I do like money a lot. I think I do like money. You know what? Relationships are important, but you know what I'd like to have a relationship with? Money. Like, that coach is cool, but I like to have relationships with money.
By the way, Anwar, so everybody knows, that like I'm not trying to like cheat any of these Texas players out of their rankings. Nick Townsen wasn't rated as a super blue chip, I don't think, by anybody. He was ranked by Rivals as the number 192 player in the country, by ESPN as the number 125 player in the country, and by On3 as the number 112 player in the country. So not the tier. 24/7 has him as a 96. That might have qualified him barely. He was rated as number 74 overall. I would need to go back. I forget what the 24/7 qualifier number is. It might be 96. So it might have been David, that he fell into the category of players that had nominations from one service but not multiple service. Nick Townsen, fantastic prospect, but we do this, David, with a lot of guys. Every guy can't be a 5-star. And if none of the services ranked him as a 5-star, none of them, then he might not be a 5-star. But that's okay. What we're saying is, we like that kid a lot. He might not be a future first-round draft pick. And look, if we're being completely honest, Nick Townsend's like a 6'3" tight end. He's never going to be a first-round draft pick, right? They don't draft tight ends in the NFL that are 6'3" in the first round. They don't. So he's not. Okay. Now, he's got some freakiness to him. Don't get me wrong. But to be able to say a guy's a 5-star, you have to be able to say, is he going to be a first-round draft pick? That would be the level of expectations. Trust me. Ask Quinn Ewers. Getting drafted has not kept Quinn from getting shamed because he has a 5-star label. And although we don't talk about these things, the rules are the rules. And if you're 1, then you definitely have to be a first-round draft pick. But if you're a 5-star guy and you don't go in the first round, they will talk about you like you failed, even if you're drafted in the 2nd round, which is what? So I'm just saying, David, I love you and I'm not picking on you. I'm just pointing out I didn't personally cheat Nick Townsen. And the Texas tight end room is really nice. We all like Jordan Washington. We all think Jack injuries probably should have been a super blue chip. I can't control the fact that the transfer ratings didn't rate that guy very highly. It's not my opinion. These are not my opinions. I'm literally telling you what other people are saying about guys. But you couldn't say that the Texas tight end room is the same as Georgia's. You just can't. You can't. You can't have no 5-stars and then have a room with 3 and then be like, it's not the same. Surely I will fight you on that. Sure.
I got. Can I give you one of my overreactions for today?
Oh, please.
And it's interesting because we have this relationship with rivals that I guess technically ends at midnight or something. So I don't know if I guess I feel like I could safely fire off shots.
Just wild a little bit. It's okay.
I think the people from Rivals in their 5-star challenge, they're about to Kelvin Banks Felix Ojo. They're about to Kelvin Banks him. What does that mean? And why you're using as a verb is because when Kelvin Banks went and competed in one of these Rivals things, and he didn't have a great week or couple of days of practice, they went and dinged him. They took away his 5-star and put him and demoted him to a 4-star.
High 4-star, but you're not wrong.
Still demoted him,
stripped
him away of it, and only for him to end up being a 1st-round draft pick. And so they're going to do that thing with Felix. And they're going to say he had a bad week, he had a bad couple of days. Look at these reps. And you know what? And they're going to ding him for that. And it's going to be total, utter bullshit when they do it, because they're going to use a couple of days as opposed to the real sample size, which is looking at the film, looking at the evaluations, and look at this 1-2 day window. And it's like, well, sure, that's all I need to know. That is not all you need to know. It's not just based off of the 2 days. It's got to be the totality. And if you are so moody with your rankings, all it took is like, oh, snap, I must be wrong. I got to change it. Then I don't know why the hell you even doing rankings altogether, if you're just being quite honest with you. But they're going to do that to him. And every coach in the country will not give a damn. They're still going to recruit. Ain't nobody going to back off Felix because he went to a Rivals 5-star challenge and he got embarrassed in a few reps. Like, ain't nobody giving a damn about that. But they're going to Banks him, and it's going to be BS. And for his sake, I hope he has the Kelvin Banks kind of results when it's all said and done.
Shout out to David Keith. Touche. Nick Townsend was a 5-star on the David Keith Williams recruiting service. Touche, David. Touche. Okay. It's not in his On3 profile bio, but that's an On3 issue more than it's a you problem. So you're right. You are exactly right. The other thing that I would say, here's my story. Look, Anwar, I have peers. I have people, subscribers. I have people who are like, Catch, you are lazy. And you're lazy because on Friday nights, when it's the only time all week that you have like an hour to be with your kids because you work all day Saturday, you work all day Sunday, you work nonstop through the week. Friday nights, you're one little time to like, I'm going to hang out with my 11-year-olds, but I'm lazy because I don't go out and watch kids on Friday night. But let me tell you where my lust for watching kids on Friday night died. I went in, God, it would be like 2008, maybe December of 2007, something like that. I went to a playoff game at the Palace on Palmer Lane with Robert Griffin III playing quarterback on one team and a future NFL running back named Jaquiz Rogers on the other. It was cold. It was the most miserable game I have ever been as a recruiting guy. I was miserable. It was so windy. It was just the last place on earth I wanted to be. The first half was so awful. I think it was 0-0 at halftime. And the halftime was like 40-something minutes. And I just got the fuck out. And I walked away that day thinking to myself, RG3 ain't shit. Jaquiz Rogers ain't shit. You know why? Because I seen it. I watched him on war with my eyeballs. I saw it. And who's smarter than me? Who's smarter than my eyeballs? I learned a real harsh reality about confirmation bias that night. Because when it came to recruiting or rating Robert Griffin III as a prospect, I should have looked at his track numbers and went, that dude's kind of got elite physical traits. My opinion doesn't matter. I should have looked at his film and said, you know what? Maybe that shit I saw at the Palace at Palmer Lane doesn't matter. But no, what happened was I decided because it was my time. Forget about the fact that he played in like 15 other games. This was the game that I went to, which means it was the most important game that he ever played in, which means all of my opinions should be formulated based on what my eyeballs told me in the sample size that I gave myself to watch this kid in, no matter what. And that is what you just described with Felix Ojo. He had a bad day. He admittedly had a bad day. I think it'll be something that works out really well for him. Kelvin Banks being doubted worked out well for Kelvin Banks. That dude used that as fuel. He internalized it. Felix Ojo can kind of do the same thing. But at the end of the day, this wasn't pads. He didn't have inside help. These are drills designed for defensive linemen. We shouldn't overreact anymore than we shouldn't have with the Kelvin Banks situation. And yet you are right. The recruiting guys that were on hand that day will get together and they'll say, that has to matter. We saw it with our own eyeballs. It has to be the most important thing. And it's not. It's just, we do this. We tell ourselves when we go see a guy, it means something. And sometimes you don't know shit. Sometimes Robert Griffin III is insanely better than anything he did in a half of football on a cold, windy night in Round Rock, Texas in the senior year of his high school season. Sometimes we get bad info. Sometimes we don't get the full picture, or we convince ourselves because we're the only ones that have seen this picture, that it's the only way a picture can be seen. And onwards, my biggest problem with the recruiting rankings. It is people talking so definitively about something that is so much more feral and uncontrollable. Whatever happens next with Felix Ojo, his injury health, like all of these little things. Who does he go to play for? Does he make the right initial decision? What talent is around? All of these other mitigating circumstances are so much more important than like whatever the hell he did in Indianapolis on a random Tuesday in June between his junior and senior years.
Yet that will be the thing that it's like, yeah, man, like that this guy is not going to be, he's not good enough. It's like, no.
He's a scrub, Anwar. He's a scrub.
And it's like, it's so far from the truth. And hell, I will say this, at least what you went to when you talk about RG3, I mean, at least it was a football game. This ain't even a football game that we're talking about. We're literally talking about dudes with no pads on, just doing meathead stuff.
Well, and I think that stuff is valuable. It's just, we see this NFL combine
like for the recruiting service. It's not valuable for the kid.
Well,
there's no value.
The problem with Ojo is that he comes in, in a world where he's not a 5-star. And he would not have known this when he accepted the invite, because the acceptance of the invite occurred before this spring. This spring, it starts. I don't want to say he's a nobody, but he's kind of a regional prospect of sorts. And he's really turned into a national prospect over the course of the spring. He only in the last couple of months has become the number one. This time last year, everybody thought John Turntine was going to be the number one offensive line prospect. Even in December and January, where I can remember doing shows where it was like, guys, Felix Ojo is the real number one. The expectations were when Michael Fasusi committed to Oklahoma, the general sentiment from Texas fans that day was, doesn't matter, we'll get Turntine. And Turntine's the only one that matters, because confirmation bias kicks in. You just tell yourself, whatever the hell you're going to end up with is the best thing. And hey, man, I get it. We all need to sleep at night. But so Ojo, his ascension to where he's been has happened very fast, very quickly, very sudden. There's a world where he goes to that camp with the reputation that he had a few months ago, and he performs in such a way where now he's the consensus number one player at his position. His NIL value would skyrocket at that point. That the guys that go to these events and really perform at exceptional levels, I think, put themselves in position where maybe not a school like Texas or Georgia or Ohio State will get crazy. I don't tend to talk to Texas people on the NIL front who are very reactionary about anything. They're very much like, let's just walk down the hill instead of running, and we'll see what's what when we get to the bottom of the hill. But there are some schools who are like in bidding wars against themselves, and somebody who might pay Mark Bowman $2.8 million per year to play tight end might get squeezed to 3 or beyond when it's all said and done, because maybe that's by any means necessary. Every school's got a kind of a different philosophy, but I feel you.
But then the flip side would be, it wouldn't be worth the risk to do it.
Well,
I mean,
it's weird. It's like a guy who gets hurt at the Shrine Bowl.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, what an awful place to have an ACL injury. And it's like, well, why were you there? Well, because I thought ultimately it would be for my best. I thought it would improve my stock. I thought it would improve my profile. I wanted to go to Indianapolis. I heard from Alex Dunlap that shrimp cocktail is amazing. Whatever the reasons might be, sometimes these guys just want to hang out with their homies and play in an NFL stadium. And it's as simple as that. And they don't think going in, well, what if I suck? Because Felix Ojo had a bad day. He did. Like, the dude went on Twitter the next morning and was like, I will not let yesterday's bad day define me. Like, it was such a bad day. He wrote I'll be stronger because of whatever doesn't break me makes me stronger kind of a deal. Honestly, there's a part of me that loves that, Anwar. I love it when a kid like that gets smacked around unintentionally, because all too many times this, because think about Texas pre-Sark. What was the thing that guys on Charlie's staff and even Tom's staff would say? These guys get to Texas and they act like they've made it. That the greatest day of their life is the day that they committed to Texas. And all of these coaches, but one of the things that Sark, I think, really wants is somebody, he's okay with guys who are like, I'm only going to be here in 3 years. He does not look at that and go, oh, selfish. Who do you think he looks to himself and goes, well, that's a dude that's got goals.
Yeah.
I probably don't have to worry too hard all the time about a guy who's thinking he's going to be in the NFL. You know, those dudes show up in January. Those guys are usually very football focused. Occasionally they're not. You know, wide receivers are divas. It just kind of is what it is. But by and large, the big time guys have big time expectations. They now have personal coaches and trainers, and the expectations for what they have to do are so exceptionally high. I don't worry about those dudes as much as I worry about the guys that might look at getting to Texas as the high point of their lives. And for a guy like Felix Ojo, the one thing that you'd worry is like, oh, he's a 5-star. He's coasting. He'll show up in college thinking he's all that. I mean, it happens. It does happen. This will hurt, man. He will hear about this shit like while he's hanging out this weekend. Hey, man, I read about what happened in Indianapolis, man. What happened? They get you? Were you hurt? Like, he'll get girls will ask, I heard about what happened, Felix. Are you okay? Like, he will be so bothered that so many people will know he got his ass kicked. And I can remember once in my sophomore year in high school, Anwar, I got into a fight with a buddy of mine named Billy Cates. I won the first half of the fight and started showboating a little bit. And Billy, who could squab, got out from underneath the position that I had it. He just dotted me in the nose. Bam! Poof! Blood everywhere. Fight got broken up. Last thing anybody remembered was that I got dotted in such a way that I was left bleeding. I didn't really lose the fight unless getting your ass bloodied is losing the fight, at which point I did. At which point I was so mad. I was so mad at the way that the fight ended. That shit never happened again. Ever. Now, look, I stopped fighting pretty young, but high school years are high school years. You do dumb things when you're kids. And I'm just telling you, I still remember the time that people thought I got my ass kicked. This might bother. You know how Michael Jordan still talks about when he got cut? I don't even know if that story's real, but Michael Jordan still talks about the day he got cut from his high school basketball team. I love when stuff like this happens. He didn't get hurt. Not like his Achilles tore. He had a bad day working out in shorts and T-shirts. And if that makes Felix Ojo better this season, better this summer, better in the future, we should all have a day at some point this summer that guarantees the future versions of ourselves are better for it. Like, won't be fun in the moment. For instance, you know, rivals and orange bloods going, like, if something were to happen that I would come, if like yesterday were problematic, I'd come away from it and it's like, oh, this will make me appreciate the good times better. And we won't have these mistakes moving forward. I'd like to not have to learn that lesson that way. But sometimes the lessons get learned the way the lessons get learned. And I'm telling you right now, if I was Felix Ojo's dad, I'd be okay with this. A good old, because I'll be honest, as Anwar and I are parents, Anwar's got a kid who's like a superstar athlete at his age group. It'd be easy for Max to go to some of these camps and stuff and get a little big-headed. I would imagine Anwar's always in the back of his mind, like, I just got to make sure that my kid's grounded and humble and appreciates his upbringing and that doesn't listen to these people who are like, you don't have more hard work to do. And anytime a message like that can happen, I'm telling you, Felix Ojo will come out of this just like Kelvin Banks did. It will be a thing in a couple of years from now. We will all look back at, shake our heads and go, how was everybody so stupid to fall for the banana and the tailpipe so soon after the Kelvin Banks banana and the tailpipe, Anwar?
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned my kid. I mean, my kid's a goalkeeper. You understand soccer. You can have a blank sheet one day and feel like you're king of the hill. And the next thing you know, you're on 3-on-1s and you get your ass, you just tore out the frame, you know? So, so there are these humble moments that happen. And as a parent, you're also, all of them become teachable moments, right? They're all teachable moments at that point. Like, first of all, after every game, I'm a dad, right? We don't talk about the game. Hey, how are you? How you feeling? okay, man, hey, I'm just like, we just go on. Let's go to Chick-fil-A. Let's just get into your iPad. Tomorrow, the next day, we can talk about certain things. I don't believe in like that whole parking lot parent thing where you see a bunch of parents out there like scolding their kids. Like, first of all, after those moments, especially the bad ones, you just need dad. Like, you don't need nobody to coach you up and tell you what you should or shouldn't have done. You already feel bad enough. But then you have the teachable moments. And I think for Felix, it becomes a teachable moment. Like, hey, yeah, these things happen. Some days, you know, there's a saying that Seth Greenberg, former University of South Florida coach, would say, and I've used this with my kids too. He goes, some days you're the dog, other days you're the tree. Today, you were the tree. Right? And that just happens, right? And so, like, hey, some days you're the dog, other days you're the tree. That day you might have been the tree. Other days you're going to be the dog. And so you just learn from it. You get better for it. And the thing is, Catch, if he comes here like a place like Texas, and, you know, I know we're getting close to the hour point, but he comes here in a place like Texas, and it's funny you talked about when guys feel like they arrived. You know what, one of the reasons why guys used to feel like when they arrived at Texas, because they had no competition. Like they were a 4 or 5 star, and so there was nobody else to compete against. But you come in here now, you can be Brandon Baker, and you can be a 5-star. But guess what? If Trevor Goosby's balling out, you're gonna have to sit and wait. Like that you're going to have to go back, get in the lab, and keep working, because what goes right back to what you started the whole show with, there's a lot of talent here that's on the roster, but there's also a lot of 3-stars that have been developed as well. So you get here and you've got to get your weight up in order to get on the field. And I think that's the big difference. So a guy like him, even if he comes here, it's like, these are going to be your learning lessons. You come here, you get bigger, better, faster, strong, but you can't come here no matter what you are, because at the end of the day, there's so much talent that's here. There's so much talent that's competing. It's just a world of a difference, but it'll be good for him.
By the way, Sooner fans in the chat, in the Specs chat, they crack me up, man. They act like they didn't get the taste slapped out of their mouths last year.
What's the offseason, though, Catch? That's what the offseason's all about. The offseason's all about forgetting what happened last year. There are teams. This is the favorite part. I used to cover the Lions, okay? You want to talk about optimism? I'm talking about the bad Lions, okay? Everybody's optimistic in the off. The best Lions one is, you remember when they went 0-16 that year when they didn't win a game? They went 4-0 in the preseason.
But all I know is you and I, when Texas was getting the taste slapped out of its mouth by Oklahoma, we were not about like, hey, guys, don't act like that doesn't matter. Remember when TCU was doing that thing on Texas and we were calling Gary Patterson Texas's daddy?
You remember when people got pissed off because we kept talking about Lincoln Riley, how great of a coach he was, and Texas fans got pissed at us for saying, like, man, he owns Texas, man. Shit, he can't do nothing with him. Like, that guy's a freaking, probably the worst thing he ever did was leave.
All I'm saying is we're pretty consistent that if you get your ass kicked, man, shut it.
They got their ass kicked like 2 out of the last 3 years.
I mean, historically, 2 years ago happened, but 2 of those last 3 games are 80-something to 3.
It's pretty bad.
It was 49-0. And then 30, what was it, to 3? You guys need to be quiet. I can't even keep track with the points. And trust me, when Texas was getting beat in 2003 and 2000, I wasn't walking around like, Texas fans, y'all should go into OU chats and talk shit about, them when they just don't do. Come on, OU fans.
Do they have? We talked about different markets, and I'm just being honest. I think the other thing for Oklahoma fans is I don't think they really have like a consistent show where they can just go into and watch pretty much every day and get that kind of stuff like all the time. Like if they had that, they probably would be in those, which is cool. Look, OU fans, you guys pay the bills too. So I mean, I ain't mad at you.
By the way, Lance, after 5 minutes, this is why I don't watch OB catches, takes, or clickbait material. Lance, I just blocked you from our YouTube. So how about that?
Oh, wow.
That's not the reason why you don't watch OB. I banned you. Now you can't watch.
You banned him?
I mean, however much they'll let me ban him, yeah.
Why did you ban him? Oh, I mean, it's not.
Because he was getting,
yeah.
You know, he was talking ish. And I wasn't going to, I just wanted to.
Well, it wasn't.
I just wanted to moderate flex a little bit on one.
First of all, I like it. Secondly, it's okay. That was a fake reaction. If actually Lance had watched and gone back and saw all the other things that you had, all the stats, all the other things, like it literally wasn't clickbait. And then in fact, the whole premise of the whole everything, Lance, which he's not seeing at this point, but for anyone who joined in late, like Sandman who joined in late, but Sandman, who we like, everything was about, hey, this is where Texas is at, but no need to overreact. Look at what they are historically. Look at what they've accomplished from a recruiting standpoint. You know, there's been some recruiting losses, but overall things are that's kind of the genesis. It really wasn't anything clickbaitist. But Lance, you'll never know, apparently, unless you got another handle. And then, which is what other people do. They create another handle.
He might still be able to watch. Maybe he just can't chat. Lance, send us a message. Let us know what it looks like.
On the other side, what does it look like from the band land? You know what though, Catch? It's the off season with Sooner. The Sooners are able to forget about everything. Lack of quarterback development. Want to forget about how their coach is going to be in the hot seat this year. Like they just. But the thing is, and then I'll shut up with this. From a Texas perspective, when you put up your graphic, Texas is competing against Georgia and Ohio State. Oklahoma is not even in conference. It's not in the conversation. It's a rivalry game, and we'll talk about it once we get there. But that Texas used to be competing against Oklahoma because Oklahoma was the best team in the Big 12. They've gone past that. That's just a footnote. It's one of your kids?
No, it's my wife. It's probably a good sign for me to wrap up.
What's up, Heather?
Hi.
Hi.
I heard all of me being
Now-
under the bus. My eyes are green and hazel with cat yellow around them. Heard it all. Heard it all.
I wasn't talking about you.
I don't know. Did get out of the chat interview because of me. Going to, Heather's been bothering me about going to water parks, this and that. I can't do anything until Tuesday, honey.
I did say that.
Yes.
You did say that part. You did say,
but that's still true. Like
too many cricks. Just give it a check.
You needed to hear that. Now you know how serious.
Hi, Heather. She just popped in the live show. Oh, look at her. What's up, boo?
What's up, guys? And I'm wearing a shirt that says petty because I'm petty.
Guys, the sponsor of the Overreaction Monday show, Rogue Shop,
By my wife.
by my wife, as she so eloquently just put it, rogueshop.com, promo code OrangeBloods. They're the sponsor of the Ketchum household. Texas is home for legal CBD, THC, and so much more, even at 9:59 in the morning on the central side of things. Sandman, yes, she's real. Guys, we're going to wrap it up mainly because I got to do a show at noon, and then we have like meetings.
That's not the reason why we're wrapping up.
No, that's true. It's not the only reason. It's just the one that I'm citing at the moment. Plus, it has been an hour. It's time to wrap it up. Guys, for myself, for Anwar, for everybody who participated, including Lance, thank you for a little bit of comic relief. Go to Rogue Shop, do some spending today. Get that product. I'm ready for my next order. Until next time, guys, you guys have a great one. Later.